morning, all y'all. My name is Bill Brule, and I'm here to serve as your worship associate this morning. We are happy to see the faces of old and new friends gathered here today. And if you're here for the first time, or if you're part of my family, please stand up and say hello. Got him here at last. The Unitarian and Universalist Fellowship of Clemson is not merely a tolerant community, but a truly welcoming congregation. We receive you here gladly, regardless of your racial or ethnic background, your age, your economic status, your political affiliation, gender expression, age, sexual orientation. Our diversity is what unites us and makes us wiser and stronger. If you'd like more information about the UUFC, I encourage you to check out our website and speak with the welcome table volunteers following the service. There are many spiritual paths in this world. You will find more than one within this congregation. You will not be judged for your beliefs. In fact, here your choices are respected and allowed to flourish. I hope that today's service will fill a place inside of you that feels hungry for something deeper. Please accept our invitation to return. Every Sunday is quite different. And you will find a few announcements on the back of this order of service. I think it's time for everybody to stand up and greet one another. Say hello. Tell us who you are. And then stay standing for the hymn afterwards. Hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please.
Oh,
opening words today were written by Gretchen Haley, Reverend Gretchen Haley. It's a poem called Giving Each Other Courage. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open, hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply, in and out. There is a time to practice because there is still so much good and beauty and joy. But it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on the edge of cynicism, broken-hearted, and trying still to remember laughter and kindness. And the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take the path that is not always easy to keep practicing. To keep practicing this love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls on us to come. Let us worship together.
It is great to see faces new and faces who have come from afar, and people who I have not seen in months, and also people I met with this morning for meetings at 9 o'clock so bright and early. What a joy it is to be with you. I am Reverend Christina Branum-Martin, and I'm the interim minister here at the fellowship, and we are gathering today with the theme of courage and what it takes for us to be together. I'm going to light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, with these words, and Bill will light it for me. May this flame, a symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us. And each week we share in our words of affirmation. If you would see them on your order of service, we can read them together. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to care for one another. So I invite anybody who wants to see my record player to come up. Is there anybody back there who might want to come up and see my record player? Come on up. I have a story about record players. So go ahead and have a seat. See it? I'll show you. Yeah. I'm going to tell you more about it. So when I was a little girl, about your age, I used to get the National Geographic magazine in the mail every month. And it was a really big deal. It was a present for my grandparents, and it had great information, but most of all, I just really, really loved the photographs. And this year, January of 1979, there was a picture of a humpback whale on the front. Yeah. And of course, there were lots of printed words and scientific information about it, but the pictures were gorgeous. And there was something in that magazine that had never been put out before. And it was an experiment. So 10.5 million copies of something went out in the mail, and I'm going to tell you about it. A record came in the magazine, a floppy record. So I want to ask you, have you ever heard a whale sound?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah. A beluga whale.
A beluga whale, like in person?
Yeah, we were at the Atlanta Zoo. They literally just like it was feeding time, and they were like talking to each other, probably like saying, "This is my food. Get out of my."
Yeah, that's probably what they were saying.
Beluga whales
And
are really aggressive.
I see someone at the window outside waiting to get in. Could somebody let them in? Okay, thank you. I'm glad I looked up. Well, whale songs were not readily heard at that time because microphones, if you were to put them underwater with electricity, they wouldn't work. So somebody invented, during the late 60s and early 70s, when I was little, a microphone that could go underwater that wouldn't fizzle out. And they were able to capture the sounds of the ocean. And what they did is they captured the sounds of whale songs. Whale songs can be really short, like 5 minutes, but they can even go up to 30 minutes.
That's half an hour.
That's half an hour. And you know what I thought was really interesting, and one of the things I learned from reading that magazine article, and I will show you later, is that if you put the song on high speed, it sounds like bird songs. So, have you imagined having a record player in your room where you could play your own records? That's what I had when I was a kid. So I played this record. I'm going to play a tiny bit of it for you, but just a little, okay? So that record is old and scratchy, and it's hard to hear. So we have downloaded a recording of some whale songs that we're going to put on the speaker for you.
That just sounds like.
So those were recordings of humpback whales off the coast of Bermuda in the spring, and they've determined over the years that those were the sounds of the male whales singing to the female whales, kind of flirting. They were flirting with them. Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Those were just different sounds. Well, that's electricity having trouble with the speaker system. Well, I want to thank you for listening to these whale sounds.
Sounds like a fart.
Okay, that's enough. So, I want to tell you that when I was a girl, it was really neat for me to learn that all sorts of animals communicate in languages that I don't understand. And I learned that the sounds of wolves singing on the hillsides at night, and the whales singing to each other, and dogs barking to each other. Sometimes they say things are coming. They're warning each other. Sometimes birds are singing to each other. That we all communicate in different ways, And as a child, it was really exciting to me to learn that. And this record was the beginning of that. And then I have a really cool little side story here that I saved this record since I was 9. Oh my gosh. Because I thought it was just so important.
How old are you?
I am 52. Wow, so I saved it since I was 9. And when I met my husband and we moved into our house together and we were going through all of our things, he had his too. It was meant to be. All right. Thank you for listening to my story and for letting me show you my record in my record player. Thank you. This is the time where the children in a moment will gather the food and goods that are going to be offered to the community. And this is also the time when we share the plate, and you support this community here by financial donations, and also half of your donations each week go to our community care companion. And I'm not remembering who it is this month. Is it on the back? It is October and it's a new month and I'm not remembering. Ripple. So Ripple of One is the organization in which we're partnering with this month, and half of all of the donations that are undesignated will go to them. A lot of food this week.
You guys are going to have to CCC staff.
Yeah. I see lots of green cards this week. It's wonderful. Lots to celebrate and share. Thank you so much for being our ushers this week. The gifts that you have offered are received with gratitude, not only for this institution as a community in which we are all a part of, but for the community at large. Thank you. I am going to start with a stone. Bill's going to put it in for me. I have new bifocals so that I can read your joys and concerns. Carl Dieter has a joy that Clemson 30, North Carolina State 20, revenge, it is so sweet. Maya Wetzler, I am happy to be here after a stressful week and e-learning all day. Yeah, we put a stone in for you. And Carol, sorrow. I cannot find my UUFC friend Craig Riley and Jerry Walker in their apartment in Sarasota, Florida.
With the hurricane, I just wanted to know.
So you just haven't been able to reach them yet. And without power, it's possible they just don't have connections. Okay. Would you please let us know next week if you hear from them? Sarah Summers. Sister and her husband in Punta Gorda struggling to repair their home roof after Hurricane Ian. Thankful that they were not hurt. Elizabeth Branstad. My cousins Ann and Jerry successfully moved from New York to Greenville on Wednesday, plus 4 cats and a dog. Wow, that's quite a move. Lori Varenhorst has a concern that if we had major changes that you have had major changes at your place of work,
Yes.
and we are living in interesting
Yes,
times.
it's a joy and concern, so.
Okay. I look forward to hearing more from you. I'll give you a call. Andy Nelson, please keep our cousins Chris and Leah Kembler in mind. Chris is a professor of psychology at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida, and they are struggling right now. Gerald McKnight. The birth of my nephew last night, and his name is Christian Rafaela. All right. Congratulations. My name is All of Us. We appreciate Carol Ward. She keeps count of how many of us attend each Sunday, including the virtual attendance, and Carol collects our donated food to Clemson Community Care. Thank you for all of your dedicated work. I'm going to put a stone in for the congregation that's in Fort Myers. Fort Myers, unfortunately, the building has received quite a bit of damage. And sadly, it said that 3/4 of the people who were members had affected homes. Many of the families have lost everything. So I myself know that the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee has a fund that's directly supporting the hurricane and recovery for families and for congregations, and I am going to make a donation from the minister's discretionary fund for that. So for those of you who help support that fund, know that I will move it forward. All right? This last stone is for the things unshared at this time. Sometimes a joy needs time to bubble over, to be shared, and other times sorrows need a chance to just sit with quiet before they're shared. And this last one is for the search team. The search team is starting a lot of work, and I'm going to keep you all in my thoughts with lots of endeavors, long meetings, and hopes and dreams for what this congregation wants in the future. Thank you. So many stones today. Paula, would you help us sing the children out? We now enter into a quiet time, a time that allows for prayer or meditation, centering in your body, being together. There are very few places in our life that invites us to sit in quiet with the presence of other people. I'd like to share a poem with you today by Lynn Unger called Moderation. Finally, the first sweet September rain. Already the lawn is showing signs of green and the air around me has relaxed. Yet across the country, a hurricane has plowed a path of destruction. Whole towns underwater and a year's worth of rain in one day. The older I get, the more I cherish old-fashioned values. Temperance, prudence, humility. What is extreme and magnificent and huge can get us. These days, my longing is for lovely, possible, sufficient. I would like to live in the age of enough. Is it too late to build things that last? Things worth repairing when they break? Is it worth rebuilding Florida when the sea is already crowding in? They'll find a way to go on, because that is what the living do. And at this point, we are all starting over, building from the rubble of our expectations. What if the vision were not spires of gold, but the contentment of a ginger cat, curled and glowing in the sun? Thank you.
I think that the story about the whales talking to one another is particularly pertinent for us today. The fact is that we have scientists around the world now who are trying to understand what they're saying so that they can talk back to them. I'd like to reflect on a guy who did that 800 years ago. His birthday is tomorrow. To sharpen the focus, I'm holding this fresh egg this morning. This is a fresh one. It's alive. So I have to be very careful of it. It is a marvel of nature, you know, when you think about it, so we should contemplate it. I believe this egg is a wonder. Think how it might develop in a bird's body. However they do it is awesome. It's truly awesome. But I think we've lost it. We have gotten used to eggs. We've forgotten what a phenomenon an egg is. They come in a paper box. They're another General Foods product we get from a glass case in the supermarket, you know, like the meat that's wrapped that way. We forget that we enslave millions upon millions of birds who deserve to live free, like we do. I believe I am guilty of disrespecting birds. So I brought that egg to reflect on the story of a man who did appreciate eggs and the birds that create them. As I say, he lived about 800 years ago. But I want to think of this medieval man as my contemporary. So imagine he's bald like me. He was, actually. He wears sandals. Probably today he would dress in rough jeans and a t-shirt. With respect to the earth, he is like a modern ecological thinker. He bridges the medieval thinking of peasants who lived close to the earth with us who are beginning to know at last that we're inseparable from nature. He was a man who lived by principles that our culture is only now learning to value again. His name was Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone. I did that. He was born in an Italian city-state about 1180 and probably died on October 3rd, 1222, at age 42. He was the son of a wealthy businessman. His mother was French with a claim to nobility. He lived in an Italian community, one of those communities, one of those Italian quarreling city-states, quarreling states. It reminds me of our time. He had a particular love for pop music, played by French bands. They were called troubadours then. They sang a lot of love songs. They went from town to town, singing and holding concerts. Sounds contemporary. Like pop musicians today. Giovanni was named by his mother when his father was away in France on business. When his father came back, he was so charmed and proud of his new son, he gave him a French nickname. He called him Frenchie. And it stuck. He was no longer Giovanni, he was Frenchie. But when Frenchie grew up, he gave his father a lot of trouble. Once, while he was tending the store for his dad, a homeless man came by and held his hand out, but Frenchie gave all of his attention to a rich guy. The homeless man gave up and walked away. Frenchie jumped over the counter and left the store and ran after the homeless guy. When he got to him, he gave homeless all the money he had in his pockets. Later, Frenchie enlisted to soldier in the wars of the city-states. Wounded, he became a prisoner of war, suffered bad treatment, spent a long time alone, locked in a cave, and that was significant. It transformed him. When he emerged, people saw a new man, a man who had profoundly changed. He did things that were considered odd, like he used his father's money without asking to repair a damaged church. His father was enraged and protested to the authorities about his son and caused Frenchie to be interrogated. Frenchie, enraged in his own way, yanked off all of his clothes, took the money out of his pocket, threw it on the floor, threw his clothes on the floor, and walked out of the office naked into the winter. Eventually, he got a rough brown woolen robe that he wore, and he tied a rope around his waist with it. People saw him as either mad or holy. In those days, mad human beings were often thought of as holy. He had two friends who were also well off, but ready to listen to Frenchy. They gave up all their belongings, and the three of them went out to live in a cave in the woods. Hippies. Frenchy's story a little like the Buddha. The Buddha, we are told, was born a prince. And he also had an experience that changed him. And he gave up his royal position and became an enrobed monk who wandered off with friends, seeking the ultimate mystery. To do that, Frenchy and his guys formed a band. Yeah, they did. And they went from town to town, walking into town, singing and dancing. And they called themselves God's jugglers. They stayed within the doctrines of the Roman Church, so they didn't get in trouble. For example, the ideas of that time were beginning to change. Mary, the Mother of God, was being given new attention as a major force, as a major mythic force in the country. I mixed up my pages. You're right there. A major mythic importance equal to or next to the idea of God the Father. God the Mother, God the Father. Frenchy had his own ideas about loving God. Poverty ruled. He took only food. That's like the Buddhist monks. He claimed that if he owned anything, he'd have to defend it. He found freedom in poverty. And I find that interesting. He began promoting an idea I find pertinent today. He related to wildlife as free creatures who deserve our respect and love. Think of the whales. There's a story about Frenchy and a wolf that terrorized the town. A wolf terrorized the town. He went off, found the wolf, talked to it, and made a deal. If the people would feed the wolf would stop attacking. That makes sense. It worked. I think I'm a little like that wolf to chickens, cattle, pigs, and more in our time. Frenchy talked to animals, and I have found similar videos of people interacting with animals now. You'll find it on YouTube. There are many, many of them. There are stories about horses helping to heal people suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. I think Karen York was involved with that.
Sarah also.
Yeah. There are dozens of stories about humans helping creatures in trouble, helping a baby elephant out of a hole in the ground. I see these videos as evidence that our long-time alienation from nature is changing. We are beginning to protect insects and birds, even cure wounded predators like hawks and wolves. Frenchy, St. Francis of Assisi, is, from my perspective, a human being who realized his relationship with the earth and then educated others about that connection we all have and cannot escape. You can find it in his poetry. Here are 6 lines, my version, from the beginning of his most famous poem, The Canticle of the Sun. I have found poetry in our culture that reflect every thought in these lines. Be praised, Most High, because of all your creatures, especially my brother sun, who brings the light you give through him, and he is beautiful and radiant in all his splendor. Be praised because of Sister Moon and the stars. You made them precious and beautiful. Be praised because of brothers wind and air and clouds and storms and all the weather, and give your creatures sustenance. Be praised because of Sister Water. She is useful, humble, and precious, and pure, and dangerous. He did not include that. Be praised because of Brother Fire, with whom you brighten the night. He is beautiful and cheerful and powerful and strong. Be praised because of our sister Mother Earth, who feeds us and rules us and produces fruits and colored flowers and herbs. He connects to the earth as we're beginning to. Francis even demonstrated his place in nature as he was dying. He insisted on lying bare on the earth as death approached. He knew his bones belonged to the earth. And that reminds me of the green burial movement. Giovanni Francis of Assisi developed the following of 5,000 friars before he died at age 42. I'd like to think we're doing something like that on an even larger scale. They were men and women who agreed with Francis that their intimate relationship to earth and its children was true. Now we can see Francis as a bridge over a time when humans believed other creatures could be exploited, to our gradual awakening that we are one with those animals. When I was a boy, I remember my uncle's greatest achievement was to come home with a couple deer on the fenders of the car. We are beginning to understand that thinking we are separate from nature has caused suffering for Earth and all its creatures, including ourselves. Francis knew what we're just beginning to realize, that we are part of it all. Francis was a humanist in the Roman Church 800 years ago. He preached radical ideas. He said, your God is of your flesh. He lives in your nearest neighbor, in every human. I would just like to say in reference to that, God bless us all.
We have a video next of a song called Mystery from a Catholic Mass called Missa Gaia. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that Mass after the video. Thank you, Bill, for setting up a story about St. Francis of Assisi and our call and to be more connected to the earth, to be more connected to nature, and to bring a story of a person who so long ago was doing it back then. And I love your bringing him into the contemporary as if he was a bald man wearing jeans. Thank you. As Bill and I were collaborating on this service for this week, we talked about his desire to bring the story to life about a person who was connected to the animals and to earth and to the ecological movement of his time. And I know for me, I wanted to tell the story about that record for the children because I was touched by that record as a child to something much bigger and much deeper. And this song, Mystery, was a part of a mass called the Missa Gaia. 18 years ago, I was singing at the First Unitarian Universalist congregation of Houston, Texas, where I was born into Unitarian Universalism and raised as a child and stayed as a young adult and sang in the choir. And we were putting on this extravagant production of this mass called Missa Gaia. Making music with others, such as playing the violin in the orchestra or singing in the choir, for me, is a spiritual practice. I'm not that strong of a singer or a musician, but collectively with others, when I can be a part of something, it connects me to something grander that I cannot do myself. And I can still remember singing the Missa Gaia and feeling touched by that production. The Missa Gaia, the Earth Mass, was named from the Latin for mass and the Greek for Mother Nature, Gaia. It was written in 1982 by a composer named Paul Winter with collaboration with Jim Scott, who some of you might know as a Unitarian Universalist musician. The inaugural production of this Mass was produced and recorded at St. John the Divine in New York City. And it was a celebration of the St. Francis feast day, which is Tuesday of this week. The Mass included typical parts of a Mass, like the Kyrie. The Kyrie is the part that usually has the words, "Have mercy, Lord, have mercy." And the Agnus Dei, "For God, please take away our sins." These theologically aren't particularly Unitarian Universalist, but there were environmental liturgical elements of contemporary music and messages in this Mass. It was a piece like I had never heard before, nor had I ever sung before. And often when I hear it, because I play it in my car, I will tear up thinking about it. In this Mass, the choir sings along with recordings of the calls of wolves, with the songs of humpback whales, with recordings of bird songs and other animals. Sometimes the songs of the wolves and the whales are the actual melody to which the choir sings to. And there were recordings of sad moments, such as the fall of glacier melt, and ocean waves, and thunder. The Kyrie was derived from the call of the wolf, and the Sanctus, the call of the holy, was the humpback whale. The composer, Paul Winter, wrote that his intention with this collaboration with nature was to show that we learn to sing from animals. Yes, the Missa Gaia was written as a Mass, but it was equally ecumenical and ecological. This Mass involved all voices of the earth, and musically, the ecumenical character was underlined by musical traditions such as Gregorian chant from the Middle Ages, Protestant hymns, romantic organ music, African instruments, Latin American rhythms on bongos, and a gospel song to a contemporary rock ballad, and also that beautiful piece that we heard today. There was a book that I read in college when I was studying biology as an undergrad. It was called The Gaia Hypothesis by James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis. And in this book, it was stated that the entire range of living matter on Earth, from whales to viruses, from oaks to algae, could be regarded as a single living entity, capable of manipulating the Earth's atmosphere to suit its overall needs, And this entity collectively was endowed with faculties and power far beyond its constituent parts. The Missa Gaia was inspired by that book. And since this Mass was first written, this Mass, Missa Gaia, has been performed at St. John the Divine in New York City every year since. And I hope one day to go to hear it. When I was singing in the choir 18 years ago, along with these sounds of wolves and whales and birds and harp seals and thunder, I felt a deep connection to the interdependent web of existence of which we all are a part. When I was singing, I was again that 9-year-old little girl listening to whale songs on my record player. I was a part of something bigger and grander than me. What I found so meaningful in being a part of singing this music, theologically, was that our pleas for mercy and our pleas for forgiveness were not from some God afar, separate from us. It was from earth itself. It was also asking forgiveness of earth for all the ills we have perpetrated upon her. Today we are in between the Jewish holy days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. In the Jewish tradition, every fall, every year, people are asked to make peace with anyone they have wronged, or slighted, or injured, or neglected in the past year. The task is not to smooth things over, to reach a compromise, or sweep the mistakes under the rug. The task is not to feel better. The task is to take ownership for that which you have done. And the goal is to seek truth for its own redemptive sake. To come to terms with, I did this. I said this to you, and I was wrong. This is the truth in which both of us are living, and I ask you to forgive me. That is the place in which we stand on these holy days. So I wonder, what would it mean for us to ask Earth and all of the living things that dwell on Earth for our forgiveness? What would it take for us to prove our worthiness of that forgiveness? I don't have the answer. But I do know that it involves taking the time to sit still long enough to listen again to the sounds of nature, to listen to the wonder of the songs of the humpback whale, to listen with wonder to the cadence of wolves at night and cicadas in the summer. And it would include raising our children among us to hear them too. It could be learning to sing a prayer in praise for the earth, as the song closing the Missa Gaia has these words. Mother Earth, all praise be yours, brother sun. All praise be yours, sister moon. By Mother Earth, my Lord, be praised by brother mountain, sister sea, through brother wind and brother air. The stars above give thanks to thee, all praise to those who live in peace. Ask of the beast, and they will teach you the beauty of the earth. Ask of the trees, and they shall show you the beauty of the earth. Ask of the winds, and they will whisper to you the beauty of the earth. And ask of the flowers, and they shall beautify the earth. For the beauty of the earth we sing today, of all the skies and of our birth sing always. Nature, human and divine, all around us lies. Lord of all, to thee we raise grateful hymns of praise. I say amen to that. May we sing praise to the earth. May we sing praise for our part of hearing the songs and the beauty of this earth. May we continue to ask forgiveness for all that we have done, and may we seek a way forward in peace. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you now to sing with me 1064, a beautiful song about living on earth called Blue Boat Home. It's in the blue hymnal. Have a seat for a second, because I know they have one more postlude they'd like to play for you. And as I put out the flame with Bill, know that this is not extinguishing the light of truth or the warmth of community or the fire of commitment These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And I hope as you come to the end of this service today, that you arrive at the beginning of your week to come. And we hope this morning has been meaningful for you, and that you leave here with a sense of connection and community and possibility.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it's been like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, it's alright. Little darling, the sun is showing to take faces. Little darling, it's been like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, it's alright. Sun, 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 here he comes. Sun, 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 here he comes. Sun, 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 here he comes. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it's been like years since you've been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright.